Hi, I'm Keith Pigues, CEO and founder of Luminas Strategy. Excited to be here today to have a conversation with Abim Kolawole from Northwestern Mutual. Abim, please take a moment to introduce yourself.
Absolutely, Keith. Always a pleasure getting to see your face and talk to you virtually, but it feels like in person. Vicky, thanks for having us. Today, my name is Abim Kolawole. I'm the Chief Audit Executive at Northwestern Mutual, which is a financial services company in the Midwest. I also have responsibilities for sustained action for racial equity, which is a task force the CEO at Northwestern Mutual put together in the wake of George Floyd's murder. The task force focuses on a couple of key initiatives. And one of the initiatives we're going to be talking about today, but it's essentially providing access to capital to Black and African American founders as part of this drive to help close the racial wealth gap.
Abim, thank you for that introduction. And, as we get started, maybe you could share a bit more about the Northwestern Mutual Black Founder Accelerator, which you mentioned, and talk a little bit about why you thought it would be interesting to engage Luminas to help with the growth and continued success of that initiative.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that. Just again, for context, I mentioned that the Black Founder Accelerator was created as part of the sustained action for racial equity that had 4 key outcomes. 2 of them are very inward facing around talent and the culture we want to create for diverse populations. And then 2 other initiatives that are outward facing, sort of community facing. And it's in the context of those 2 outward facing, community facing initiatives that we determine the great gap when it comes to access capital for Black and African American founders. That led to the creation of the Northwestern Mutual Black Fund Accelerator powered by Generator. So we're collaborating with Generator to get that accelerator up and running. It's been around now for about 2.5 years. We've had a number of cohorts, about 30 graduates approximately from the Black Fund Accelerator. But as we executed on the accelerator, our thought was, boy, we need to make this the premier accelerator for Black and African Americans. And in going from what I call good to great, we had the opportunity to engage Luminas to really help us with the deep thinking, strategic know-how to think about how we might take a program that is great or good, in my opinion, to even greater heights of potential. So that was the context in which we created the accelerator. And that was the context in which we engaged Luminas for its deep expertise to really help us sharpen the value proposition and take it from the current state of good to great.
Okay. So maybe you could share some of the highlights in terms of the things that you learned or the insights as a result of the work with the Luminas Stakeholder Value Xcelerator.
Yeah, the numerous insights came from the work that you did with us. In particular, we recognize that while access to capital is a critical factor, access to initial capital, the ability to access follow-on financing was just as important, if not more important. So that's on the access to capital continuum. But the ecosystem that needed to be grown, that's more holistic, more surround sound, was really one of the most incredible takeaways for me. And when I talk about the ecosystem, it's one thing to get folks in the program, but we know access to a network and a common support system among even the founders and venture capitalists all add to the ability for a founder to get in the game, to stay in the game, and to thrive in the game, so to speak. And we needed to create, or at least to understand the capabilities needed to really be able to build that ecosystem holistically. So that was something that Luminas and the team adeptly pointed out to us, and is something certainly we're taking very seriously, and we'll be building into the program for even greater heights this year and the next year.
Okay. So if there are a few things that you can share about some of the specific actions that you're taking, and I know you maybe only be able to share some of them, what are some of the major things that you are implementing immediately?
Yeah, I would say one of them is that fostering that sense of community. We talked about the people coming to the program, they graduate and there's a so what. We want to make sure that each cohort member is feels a part of an extended community. They can lean on one another because they're tried and true ways of learning. So that's something we're absolutely working on implementing right now. The other aspect in terms of the further access to capital is we're being more intentional about connecting the cohort members to some of the Black venture capitalists that we have funded, because that's a source for access to capital. We're also trying to be very informative in terms of our own criteria for follow-on financing, because during the 12 weeks of the program, we help the founders understand how they need to sharpen their business models so they can be even more attractive to follow-on financing, such that the Black venture capitalists we have funded are willing, able, and desirable to provide the follow-on financing. So those are two of there's so many other initiatives you pointed out or opportunities, but again, access to the network, greater community, and follow-on financing were three of the most material things that rose to the surface in terms of added value proposition. We can now confidently say that we have, through some of these implemented things and other things to be implemented, we believe the value proposition will ring even truer to current members of the cohort, but even aspiring applicants in years to come.
Fantastic. As you think about this road, as you call it, from good to great, right? So you guys are making great progress. You look down the road, a few years down the road, what is it that you hope to achieve, right? And how do you think that the things that you've learned and you're implementing are going to help you get there?
Yeah, no, thanks for that opportunity, Keith, because it's not easy, and you ultimately want to see that you're making impact. Our CEO has challenged us to ensure that we are actually making impact. The accelerator is phenomenal, but one could say it's an activity. At the end of the day, what we want is to have these founders to grow revenue, obviously, to be able to hire more people, to sort of, that's the spark of impact we're looking for. Are you hiring more people? Are you creating jobs for more people? Are you able to contribute in the community? Are you able to generate more revenue that enables you to pass on a legacy? All these critical, impactful things. I would call that kind of the downstream impact. And we're in a position now to begin to measure the impact we have. We recognize a 12-week program, $100,000 in the program is not the end or be all. It's one step on this journey to ensuring that people's lives are getting better and essentially helping, doing our part to close the racial wealth gap. The racial wealth gap is like boiling the ocean, and it takes multiple participants doing little bits of things like this, but we all collectively want to measure, what does closing the racial wealth gap look like? What does enabling people to be able to pass on a legacy look like? And what position do we need to put them in to ensure that we can measure things of this nature? So your question was, what does winning look like at the end of the day? Winning is measurable, tangible impact in enriching people's lives.
Yeah, we've been really pleased to have the opportunity to work with you and the team at Northwestern Mutual. And the impact that you were having, before you enlisted us, for additional support was amazing. And we look forward to seeing the additional impact that you guys are going to have going forward. For other leaders, and we speak to a number of them, regularly, who are thinking about how to get greater impact, primarily from nonprofit types of organizations that we work with who are looking to have great impact through their philanthropy efforts. What advice would you give to them as they're thinking about how to move from good to great?
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts. First, honestly, it really starts with courageous leadership. In this day and age, I cannot underscore how important that is. I feel very fortunate to have a CEO that's courageous, committed, and has thrown his support behind this program and behind me. Without that kind of courageous leadership, people shrink. People say it's somebody else's job to drive. So my first advice will be, it's not just the saying, it really makes a difference if you're a courageous leader. The second is bold, innovative thoughts. Again, I talked about good to great because I wanted us to really challenge the status quo, look around the corners and be bold, bold and innovative. So I would say courageous leadership. I would say don't just settle for kind of the status quo, push the bounds. Think about creatively things that have never been done before. Why can't it be you? How do we push big boulders uphill, recognizing they may roll back? So those would be the two most important things. Think big, think outside of the box, be innovative, be bold, and certainly be courageous, because I know that in this work, that's what it's taken. And that's been, part of the challenges that we've had to overcome here, but we're fortunate.
Okay. Maybe you could share a little bit about what it was like for you and your team to work with our team at Luminas in helping you to uncover some of those insights and to be used as part of your bold and courageous plans going forward. So what was it like to work with the Luminas team?
So one sort of surround sound comment is it was fantastic working with your team. We really, really enjoyed it, not just from sort of the interpersonal skill sets, the depth of technical expertise, but just the reachability, right? But the nuts and bolts were from the first time I started having the conversations with Luminas. Your ability to really show us the depth of expertise matched with the use case we had brought. I think the description that you had was, we help you sharpen your value proposition or something along, which is exactly what I was looking for. So, unpacking your expertise, giving us some use cases of how you had done that in the past in terms of other engagements was very beneficial. But more specifically, taking us through kind of the timeline and the roadmap. How would we engage in this engagement and what must be true? I really appreciated that we scoped it. I think it was a 3-month engagement, and almost sort of week by week, I could very well understand what winning would look like and what the finish line looked like. So I think every aspect of the process was great. I enjoyed the expertise, and I enjoyed your flexibility, frankly, because not everything, always moved exactly on pace as you would have wanted it. So really enjoyed it.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
I think in general, I would encourage any prospective companies or businesses who really are thinking about, challenging the status quo and thinking about taking whatever the business model or proposition is from where its current state is and dreaming about a future state, to really think about engaging, Luminas. We were pleased with the outcome. We certainly have some things to go implement, but we feel like we have the right ingredients to be able to make a difference in the future. So again, I would say think about the expertise that Luminas brings. Think about the working style and how they, you engaged us to make sure that the deliverable was sort of, fit for what we expected. So all in all, those are some of my thoughts and sentiments. We enjoyed it, and we anxiously are looking forward to implementing almost all of the recommendations.
Okay, fantastic.